I came home early that Wednesday, not because of some plan or suspicion, but because the power had gone out at work and IT couldn't do much in the dark. I remember thinking it'd be nice to surprise Tessa. We hadn't had lunch together in weeks, and maybe this would be a small win for a midweek slump. I parked the car quietly and let myself in through the garage, not wanting to call out and ruin the surprise. It wasn't until I was halfway through the kitchen that I noticed her laptop open on the counter, still running. That's not what caught my attention, though. It was the mirror in the dining room. It gave me just the right angle to see into the living room without stepping into it. She didn't see me. She was standing, barefoot as always, but this time she was laughing. Not at a show or her phone, at someone else. And he was in our house. I didn't recognize him right away, but I remembered him later. He was one of the guys from her gym, the one she said had helped her when she hurt her ankle on the treadmill. Said he was friendly, harmless. Just chill was the word she used. They were standing close. Not touching, not kissing, nothing like that. But it was the way she looked at him. I hadn't seen her face light up like that in years. I felt like I was intruding in my own home. I watched her smile, playful, like she used to with me before we both got too tired and too distracted and too used to each other. The guy reached over, probably said something clever or smooth, and she smacked his arm, laughing again, then leaned in just slightly like she was about to say something secret. My stomach twisted. There's nothing illegal about two people talking and smiling, but anyone who's ever been married knows that intimacy isn't always in the touch. Sometimes it's in the way people look at each other when they think no one else is watching. I stepped back, quiet, retraced my steps out the door, and sat in my car with the engine off, just staring at the dashboard. I wasn't even sure what I'd seen. I mean, technically, it could have been innocent, but something inside me was already shifting. I didn't go back in. I went and got a sandwich from a place I didn't even like and sat in the parking lot pretending like I wasn't replaying every second of that moment. When I came home later, they were gone. The laptop was shut, the counter wiped clean, like it never happened. Tessa was in the backyard with her coffee and a book, acting like this was any other Wednesday. She looked up and smiled at me, lazy and content. "Hey, you're home early," she said. "Power's out," I replied, and kissed the top of her head. She smelled like citrus and laundry detergent and everything familiar, and for a moment I almost convinced myself I was being paranoid. Almost. "Did you have a friend over?" I asked casually, grabbing a water from the fridge. She barely looked up from her book. "Yeah, Ben. He brought me that stretch band I mentioned last week. Said I could borrow it." "Nice of him," I said, and left it there. Because I had nothing else. Just a feeling and a glimpse in a mirror. But from that day forward, something inside me stayed alert. A few days after that, I started noticing the routines shift. She used to come home from the gym around 6:30, sweaty, annoyed about traffic, always asking what I wanted for dinner even when she already knew we'd just end up ordering. But that week, she started coming home later, not by much, just enough to notice. 7:15, sometimes 7:30, once it was nearly 8. She'd claim the classes were running behind, or that she stayed to chat with a friend, or that she had to wait for a machine. It wasn't anything I could call out without sounding insecure, and she made sure to say everything casually, like I'd be weird for thinking it was weird. She wasn't dumb. Tessa always knew how to word things just right, with that low-effort calm that made it seem like she was the one keeping things stable. That Friday, when she came in later than usual, I asked her what kept her. She stood by the sink, sipping from her water bottle like she didn't have to think about it. "Ran into Ben," she said. "He was showing me some shoulder exercises." It was the way she said it, like it was the most natural thing in the world, like I was supposed to nod and move on. I stood across from her at the counter, watching her pull her hair up with a band from her wrist. "Didn't think you two were that close," I said, watching for even the smallest pause. "We're not close," she replied immediately, too immediately. "He's just helpful." And he was there. "Relax." I didn't answer, just nodded like I believed her, but I didn't. I didn't believe her at all. I started checking small things, things I never used to care about. The laundry basket, her gym bag, the calendar on the fridge. I'd always been the kind of husband who trusted her completely, the kind that never read into anything unless it punched me in the face. But now I was looking, and once you start doing that, everything starts to shift. The gym bag wasn't packed the way she used to pack it. Her usual towel was gone, replaced with a different one that I'd never seen her use before. And once, I found a receipt folded inside the bag's front pocket, a smoothie place on the other side of town. She'd never mentioned going there. I didn't bring it up. I needed something real, something that wouldn't make me sound like I was just connecting dots in my head. So I decided to wait. Watch. Keep track of when she left, when she came home, what she said she was doing, and how it lined up. And then came the moment that changed everything. It was the next Tuesday. She said she was going to the gym for a late class, wouldn't be back until around 8. I nodded, told her to drive safe, and watched her leave like normal. But this time, I didn't stay home. I waited about 10 minutes, then grabbed my keys and followed. She had no idea I'd borrowed my friend's car earlier in the day, so she wouldn't recognize it. She drove to the gym, parked in the lot, and walked inside. I waited, watched the entrance from down the street, checking my watch every few minutes. 15 minutes passed. 20. Then, without warning, she walked back out. But she wasn't alone. Ben followed behind her, wearing a different shirt than he had on earlier when he'd first entered, one I hadn't seen before, which I only noticed because he was so close to her. I could practically see the damn stitching. She laughed at something he said, then pulled her phone from her pocket and checked it. Then, just like that, they crossed the lot together and got into his car. Not hers. His. She didn't even glance around. She just got in like it was routine. Like this had happened before. I didn't follow them. I already knew. My stomach had sunk too far down for me to pretend this was a misunderstanding. I waited another hour, then drove home. She came in close to 9, gym bag on her shoulder, hair still damp like she'd just showered. Long class? I asked without looking at her. Yeah, she said, kicking off her shoes by the door. Crowded. Took forever to get a treadmill. I looked at her from across the living room. She met my gaze for half a second, then turned away. That's when I knew it wasn't just a suspicion anymore. It was real, and she was lying right to my face. I didn't say anything else that night. I didn't ask questions or demand answers. Instead, I waited until she was in the shower, then grabbed her gym bag from the hallway. Dug through it. Found another receipt. Same smoothie place. Same time. Different day. There were no gym towels, no extra clothes. Nothing that said she'd done anything other than change into something clean and meet him. I went to bed before she came out, pretending to be asleep. She slid in beside me, and I could feel her pause, probably checking if I was breathing slow, then settled in like nothing was wrong. Like she wasn't blowing a hole through everything we'd built. I lay there in the dark, listening to the soft rhythm of her breathing, and knew I couldn't ignore it anymore. I wasn't paranoid. I wasn't jealous. I was just the only one who hadn't been let in on the joke. I didn't go to work the next day. I called in and told them I had a stomach thing, and that was technically true. I hadn't eaten anything since the night before, and my stomach was in knots from the second I opened my eyes. Tessa had already left by the time I got up. She left a note on the counter saying she had an early spin class and that she'd be home late because she was meeting a friend for lunch. No name, no details, just enough to avoid a phone call. I stood in the kitchen, staring at her handwriting for a few minutes before crumpling it up and tossing it in the trash. Then I opened the drawer next to the fridge and pulled out the spare set of keys to her car. I didn't have a full plan, just a building sense of pressure that I had to do something before I started losing my grip. I drove across town to the shopping center where her gym was. I parked far enough away not to be noticed, but close enough to see the cars coming and going. Tessa's car wasn't there. It wasn't even close. I checked the clock, 8:23 a.m. So if she was really at her early spin class, she would have already been inside. But her car wasn't in the lot. I waited. 10 minutes. 20. Nothing. Then I drove slowly around the other side of the building, checked every spot, every lane. Still nothing. I parked again, checked the gym's social media just to see if they posted anything about classes being canceled. Everything was on schedule. Every instructor tagged, including hers. Her class was happening. She just wasn't in it. I went home, sat on the couch, tried not to spiral, but the truth was already sitting with me. I wasn't paranoid. I wasn't overreacting. Something was happening, and she was hiding it. Around 1:30, she came home with a brown paper bag in one hand and her phone in the other, smiling like she'd just wrapped up a fun girl's day out. She kissed my cheek on the way in and headed straight to the kitchen. "Brought you something?" she said, placing the bag on the counter. Figured you might be hungry since you're sick and all. I didn't answer right away. I just watched her unpack a sandwich and a little side salad like we were still normal. Like I hadn't spent the morning driving around trying to find her. How was spin? I asked, keeping my tone flat. She blinked, then smiled again too quickly. Tiring. The new instructor pushes too hard. I think I pulled something. I nodded slowly, watching how she avoided eye contact. I didn't push it right away. I took the sandwich, said thanks, and we sat at the table like a normal couple. She talked about her lunch with a friend, still no name, said they talked about a trip to Napa they wanted to plan. I ate half of the sandwich before I pushed the plate away. Who's been? I asked. I didn't raise my voice. I didn't slam anything. I just looked at her directly and waited. Her eyes flicked up, confused for a split second before she covered it. I told you. He's just a guy from the gym. Right, I said. So what's going on with him? Nothing's going on with him, she said quickly, a little too sharp. Why would you even ask that? I sat back in my chair and folded my arms. Because I saw you get into his car. After telling me you were staying late at the gym. She froze. The look on her face didn't say innocent. It said busted. And she knew it. Her mouth opened like she was about to say something, then closed again. You followed me? She asked, like that was the issue. You lied to me, I said. I don't care what you call what I did. I call it catching you. She stood up suddenly and walked to the sink, gripping the edge like she needed something to hold on to. She didn't turn around. All right, she said after a long pause. We want to get food. That's it. It's not what you think. You said you were at the gym, I reminded her. You told me you pulled something. It's easier than explaining that I was getting food with someone you'd start asking questions about, she snapped. I just didn't want to deal with the argument. So you lied, I said, standing now too. Not to protect me, but to protect yourself. She turned then, eyes narrowed. Nothing happened, Darren. We talked. We've talked a few times. I didn't want to tell you because I knew you'd jump to conclusions, and look, here we are. I shook my head. You didn't tell me because you knew what it looked like. Because you knew what it was. It's not like that, she said. I didn't cheat on you. You're emotionally attached to another man and sneaking around to spend time with him. That's not cheating. She didn't answer. She just looked at me, and in that look, everything I needed to know was already there. I didn't sleep that night. Not even a little. Tessa fell asleep without issue, which told me everything I needed to know about how much she cared about the damage she'd done. She turned off her lamp, rolled over, and within 10 minutes her breathing had slowed and deepened. I stared at the ceiling for hours, listening to every shift of her body on the mattress, every breath, every little unconscious sound that reminded me she could sleep just fine after looking me in the eye and lying again and again. She hadn't denied the feelings, only the physical part, as if that made it forgivable, as if I should accept being betrayed as long as no clothes were removed. But the way she had looked at me when I caught her, the hesitation, the cracks in her answers, it all confirmed what I already knew. She'd already crossed a line, whether she wanted to admit it or not, and I wasn't going to let that go. The next morning, I got up before her. I didn't make a sound. I left the bedroom, grabbed my laptop, and opened a folder I had started a few nights ago, Tess_Truth. I wasn't going to scream at her, and I wasn't going to beg. What I was going to do was gather. Everything. Every lie, every move, every excuse. If she thought this was going to be a clean escape into someone else's arms, she had no idea who she was married to. I wasn't just going to catch her. I was going to make her regret every second of it. I started by logging into the Wi-Fi router. She never changed the password, and she had no idea the history could be checked through the admin panel. Her phone had connected to a cafe Wi-Fi 3 times over the last 2 weeks. It wasn't anywhere near her gym or her office. I pulled up the location on my phone. It was across the street from an apartment complex. I copied the logs and saved them to the folder. Then I checked the shared calendar. There were 3 yoga appointments at times her gym didn't even offer yoga. I searched the gym's website to confirm. Save that too. I wasn't just trying to catch her. I wanted to have it laid out so clearly that she couldn't backtrack, couldn't spin it, couldn't pretend. Then I opened the drawer by her side of the bed and looked through the receipts she shoved in there. I found one for dinner at a bistro we'd never been to together. 2 meals. A wine pairing. Paid in cash. She didn't even try to hide it well. I took a picture, saved that too. At that point, I knew I had more than enough to confront her again, but I didn't want a confrontation. I wanted something bigger. I wanted her to feel what it was like to be powerless. Later that afternoon, while she was running errands, I drove to the cafe she had connected to. I parked and waited. I didn't have to wait long. Less than 15 minutes later, I saw her car pull into the lot across the street. She wasn't alone. Ben was in the passenger seat. They didn't even try to act discreet. They got out of the car laughing, not holding hands, but close, too close, the kind of closeness that said this wasn't their first time meeting here. I stayed in the car, took a few photos with my phone, then left before they could see me. That was the final thing I needed. That night, she came home like nothing happened. She made pasta, asked about my day, acted like everything was fine. I answered her questions calmly. I even joked once or twice, and she laughed, relieved, like maybe she thought the storm had passed. When we went to bed, I told her I had a surprise for her the next day. She asked what kind of surprise. I told her it was something she'd never forget. She laughed and kissed my cheek. The next morning, she went to work like usual. As soon as she left, I opened my laptop, attached the folder to a new email, and sent it to two addresses, hers and mine. I wrote one sentence in the body. Thought you should see what I've been working on. Then I printed everything. The receipts, the location logs, the fake calendar entries, the photos, and slid it all into a binder. I drove to her office, left it at the front desk with her name on it, then walked out without saying a word. That afternoon, I waited at home. I didn't call her. I didn't text her. I sat on the couch, waiting to see how long it would take. It didn't take long. At 4:42 p.m., the front door burst open. She came in holding the binder in both hands, red in the face, her voice already raised before she was even fully inside. "What the hell is this?" she shouted, throwing the binder onto the coffee table. "You tell me," I said, not getting up. "Looks like a week's worth of lies, give or take." "You had no right." "I had every right." I cut her off. "You brought someone else into this marriage. You lied to my face. Repeatedly. You used our house as your base of operations while sneaking off to spend time with someone else. So don't stand there and act like you're the victim." Her mouth opened, then shut. She sat down across from me, her hands shaking. She didn't look angry anymore. Just caught. Trapped. I waited. "You don't understand," she finally said, voice quieter now. "It wasn't supposed to be anything serious. Things between us haven't felt right for a while, and I didn't know how to fix it. So instead of talking to me, you found someone else to distract you?" She looked away. "Do you love him?" I asked. "No," she whispered. "But you still kept going back." She nodded, barely. I stood. "We're not done talking about this. But right now I need space. So get out. Go stay with a friend. Figure out what the hell you really want." She didn't argue. She stood, grabbed her keys, and walked out without another word. Tessa was gone for 2 days. She didn't call, didn't text, didn't try to explain anything. I assumed she was staying at one of her friends' places, maybe even with Ben, though the thought of that made me want to throw a chair through a wall. But I didn't. I kept calm. I cleaned the house, took care of the bills, and went about my days like someone who wasn't boiling inside. On the third day, she finally reached out. She sent a message asking if we could talk, said she'd come by around 7. I told her to come. I had things I wanted to say too. Not just about what she did, but about what would happen next. I wasn't interested in some big emotional apology or another list of reasons why it all just happened. I wanted to end this on my terms. She arrived on time. I was sitting at the kitchen table with a cup of coffee that I wasn't drinking. She walked in like someone arriving at a stranger's house, slow and quiet, eyes on the floor. She looked tired, like she hadn't slept, and I didn't feel bad about that. "I'm not here to fight," she said, setting her bag on the chair across from me. "Good," I replied. "Neither am I." She sat down, exhaled deeply, and didn't speak right away. I waited. I wasn't going to help her ease into it. She owed me more than that. "I've been staying with Jenna," she finally said. "I didn't go to his place." "I don't care where you stayed," I said. "That's not the part that needs clearing up." She nodded, like she expected that answer. She took a moment before continuing. "I wasn't planning to leave," she said. "I didn't think I was actually. I don't know. I kept telling myself I was just bored, or unhappy, or going through something, and that if I talked to someone outside of it, it would make things easier. And instead of a therapist, you picked some guy from your gym." Her jaw clenched. I know how it sounds. No, I said, you know how it is. You had feelings for him. You lied to me. You snuck around. That's not a misunderstanding, Tessa. That's a choice. I'm not trying to deny that, she said, her voice shaking a little. I made a mess of everything. I know that. And I deserve whatever you're going to say. I didn't respond. I just looked at her, letting the silence stretch. She fidgeted, touched her wrist, adjusted her sleeve, anything to avoid my eyes. Then I finally spoke. So what now? She blinked. What? I said, what now? You said you didn't come here to fight. Okay. Then what did you come here for? I wanted to be honest with you, she said. I wanted to tell you that it's over with him. Completely. I ended it before I even got here. Congratulations, I said flatly. You're 2 weeks late. She looked stung, but I didn't care. She needed to hear it. I don't want a divorce, she said quietly. I leaned back in my chair and crossed my arms. Why not? Because I still love you, she said without hesitation. And because I don't want to throw away everything we've built over one mistake. One mistake? I repeated, not even trying to hide the sarcasm. You think that was one mistake? It wasn't physical, she said quickly. We never slept together. I swear. It didn't get that far. That's your defense? I asked. That you didn't get around to it yet? The only reason it wasn't physical is because you got caught first. No, she said firmly, sitting up straighter. No, that's not it. I could have done it. I had the chance. I stopped it because I knew it was wrong. Because I didn't want to lose you. But you still lied, I reminded her. You still met him behind my back. You still kept it going for weeks. That doesn't just disappear because you didn't sleep with him. I know, she said. I'm not asking for forgiveness. I'm asking for a chance to earn it. I stared at her. I wanted to yell. I wanted to scream at her until she realized what it felt like to be lied to by the one person you trusted most. But I didn't. I stayed quiet for a few moments, then said what I had already decided hours before. We're done, I said. This marriage is over. Her face dropped, but I didn't stop. I'm not doing this with you. I don't want to wake up every day wondering where you are or who you're with. I don't want to play detective in my own house. You made your choice. Now I'm making mine. She opened her mouth, then shut it. Then she said, I understand. I'll have the paperwork sent over by the end of the week, I said. You can sign it or not, but either way, I'm filing. Tessa didn't cry. She looked down, nodded slowly, and stood up. Can I come by tomorrow and get the rest of my stuff? Yeah, I said. Just let me know when. She grabbed her bag and walked to the door. Right before leaving, she turned to me and said, For what it's worth, I never stopped loving you. I didn't answer. I waited until the door closed behind her. Then I sat back down at the table. The coffee had gone cold. She came back that Friday afternoon to get her things. I had packed most of it already, her clothes folded into boxes, toiletries set aside in a small bin, books and shoes lined up neatly by the wall. I didn't do it to be nice. I did it because I wanted her out as quickly as possible. The house felt heavier every time I passed through a room she'd spent time in, and I needed the space to start clearing my head. She knocked instead of using her key, which was the first smart thing she'd done since this whole thing started. I opened the door, let her in without a word, and pointed to the stack of boxes in the hallway. She walked in slowly, said thank you in a voice barely above a whisper, and started loading things into her car. She didn't cry. I didn't either. We were past that part. There was nothing left to mourn. She made a few trips back and forth. I watched from the couch, not because I cared, but because I wanted to make sure nothing went missing. Once everything was in her trunk, she came back in one last time and stood in the middle of the living room like she couldn't figure out what to do next. I know you probably don't want to hear anything else, she said, but I feel like I need to say something. You've said plenty, I replied, still sitting. What's left? I just want to explain one more thing, she said. You deserve that. I didn't stop her. I figured this would be the last time I ever had to listen to her. When I started talking to him, it wasn't because I wanted something physical, she began. I didn't go looking for an affair. I was just, I don't know. I felt stuck. Like I was disappearing a little more every day. You were always steady, always reliable, but we stopped talking about anything real. We stopped laughing. It was like I lived with someone who did everything right, but wasn't really there. So you found someone who made you feel interesting again, I said. Someone who told you things I apparently stopped saying. She nodded slowly. Yes, I know that sounds selfish, but I wasn't planning to leave you for him. I just didn't know how to feel like myself again without losing everything. You lost everything anyway, I said, not out of spite, but just to make sure she understood the facts. I know, she said, and I'll regret it every day. There was a long pause after that. Neither of us moved. She looked at the floor. I looked at her. I wanted to believe her. I wanted to believe it wasn't some long-planned betrayal, that she just got swept up in something she didn't know how to stop. But the problem wasn't just that she cheated. The problem was that she kept it hidden until she had no choice but to confess, and only because I caught her. I don't hate you, I said, but I don't trust you, and I don't think I ever will again. That's the part you don't seem to get. It's not about one guy or one situation. It's about knowing that the next time something goes wrong, your solution might be to lie again. That's the risk I'm not willing to take. She nodded, her mouth tight, her eyes wet but holding. I get it. I stood up, walked to the door and opened it. We're done, Tessa. She walked past me without another word, got into her car, and drove away. I didn't watch her leave. I closed the door and locked it. The next few weeks were quiet. I finalized the divorce paperwork. She signed everything without fighting. We didn't talk again, except through lawyers. Mutual friends tried to reach out, tried to make sense of it, but I didn't owe them an explanation. The people who mattered knew enough. A few of her friends unfollowed me online. I didn't care. I wasn't looking to win a popularity contest. Living alone wasn't easy at first. I'd wake up expecting her to be there, and then remember she was gone. I'd catch myself cooking too much food or reaching for her coffee mug. The routines we built together were still in my bones. But with each day, I started adjusting. I cleaned out the bedroom, replaced the sheets, moved the furniture, changed the locks. I deleted her number, blocked her on social media. Not out of anger, just to give myself the space to move forward without the constant reminders. It took a while, but eventually, the house started to feel like mine again. Not ours. Mine. I started seeing friends again, took a trip to visit my brother, joined a community group just to be around new people. I didn't rush into anything romantic. I wasn't interested. What I needed most was peace. Looking back, I don't think there was a single moment where everything fell apart. It happened slowly, piece by piece, until there was nothing left holding us together. Maybe we both stopped trying in different ways. Maybe she just gave up first. But the betrayal didn't come out of nowhere. It came from all the small moments we stopped choosing each other. That's the part I've had to accept. I'm not bitter. I'm not broken. I'm just done. And sometimes that's the healthiest thing a person can be. Done. Ready to move on. Ready to build something new with someone who understands that love isn't just about feeling good when things are easy. It's about showing up, being honest, and choosing each other again and again, even when it's not convenient. Tessa didn't choose that. So now I choose something else. Something better.